Abdul Kul Bazun Tafalatek, Wadanabek, Mahu, Hadis, Aisha, Inakalu, Anuki Fiena Aishu Shukalu, Wakul Aishukaluni, Naata Kuna Pikalu, Anuki Feragun Shukalu, Wakalukalu Feragun Shuni, Anuki Wahid Kakalu, Wakalukalu Wahid Mahani, Nuk Aikilu, Enjiu, Kama Feragun Shukalu, Hubkama Feidu, Nuk Aikilu, Ahuenu, Kudi, Nuka Fizikalu, Kama Tawukamaka Fazi Kaluni, Amidu Fikalu. Anuki Kaba Hawa Hood, Kalu Kalu Nanuki, Kalu Yaku, Nuk Aikilu, Kalu Bamu, Nuk Atmilu. Begin all prayers, thinkies, and deeds with who? Divine love and all. I am in the love of all, and all love is me. We are all in all. I am a part of all, and all is a part of me. I am one with all, and all is one with me. I could succeed as a part of all and fail as an individual. I can be all I wish in all, as long as my wish is to stay in all. I am never alone. All is I am. All can I can. All does I do. Who am I?
Own thing. Who am I?
Kaun Fing, who am I?
Okay, who am I now? Just want to make sure I can be heard.
You can be heard.
Tawahat. We're going to start on page 48, where we left off. Ankh, Everlasting, Eternity, Chapter 1, The Egyptian Teaching. Only a fool ducks when the truth is thrown at them. From old Tamaray, Egypt, have come the fundamental teachings which have so strongly influenced the philosophies of all races, nations, religions, and peoples for thousands of years. Egypt, the home of Pa Merat, the pyramids, Paruti, the Sphinx, and Pa Tekhinu, the obelisk, was the birthplace of all hidden wisdom and mystic teachings. From secret doctrine, all nations have borrowed. India, Sumeria, Persia, Chaldea, Media, China, Japan, Assyria, ancient Greece, Rome, America, or Atlantis, and other ancient and modern countries partook liberally at the feast of right knowledge, called then Nuwapu, with the teachings called Hika, which the grand hierophants and masters of the land of Re, Ra, the god of life and light, the sun, so freely provided for those who came prepared to partake of the great store of mystic and occult lore which the masterminds of that ancient land had received from beings from beyond this planet Earth called the heavens. The Nitirat, called also the Anunnaki, the Nomus, the Elu, the gods who all came to Earth except for the Elu, who remain spiritual beings from afar off. They are you, us, we, in your scriptures. In ancient Tamaray, Egypt dwelt the great adepts and masters who have never been surpassed and who have never been equaled during the centuries that have taken their processional flight since the days of the great Tehuti. In Egypt was located the great lodge of lodges of the mystics, the great temple of temples. At the doors of its temples entered the neophytes, who afterward, as hierophants, adepts, and masters, traveled to the four corners of the earth, carrying with them the precious knowledge which they were ready, anxious, and willing to pass on to those who were ready to receive the same. All students of the truth recognize the depth that they owed to these venerable masters of the ancient land, Tamaray, Egypt. But among these great masters of ancient Egypt, there once dwelt one of whom masters hailed as the Master of Masters. This man, if man indeed he was, dwelt in Egypt in the earliest days. He was known by many names worldwide by Tehuti, but Tehuti was his name. He was the father of the teachings of Hika. All occults, mystics, secret orders, and magic comes from Heka, the founder of astrology, the discoverer of alchemy. The details of his life story is he has no mother, no father, no beginning of days, nor end of days, owing to the lapse of the years through several of the ancient countries disputed with each other in their claims to the honor of having furnished his birthplace. They are wrong. He was from the 8th planet Risk in the 19th galaxy of or Ilium, and this was thousands of years ago. The date of his sojourn in Egypt and that his last incarnation on this planet is now known. It has been fixed at the early days of the oldest dynasties of Egypt, and now in these days and times, he is with you again. As the years rolled by after his ascension from this physical plane of physical life, he lived 120 years in the flesh. The Egyptians deified Haru or Horus, and knowing him to be of their own family of Netirat, or supreme beings, under Thoth. Years after, the people of ancient Greece also made him one of their many gods, calling him Hermes, the god of wisdom. The Jews called him Melchizedek. The Muslims called him El Kedar or Nabi Kedar, known as Karama. The Egyptians revered his memory for many centuries. Yes, tens of centuries, calling him the scribe of the gods, when translated into English, and bestowing upon him distinctively his ancient title, Trimajestus, which means the thrice great, meaning he will incarnate into flesh 3 times, etc. Once in Genesis 14:18, twice in Hebrew 7:1, and third name in the Holy Tablets, chapter 2, tablet 2:4. In all the ancient lands, the name of Hermes, Trismegistus, was revered, the name being synonymous with the fount of wisdom. Even to this day, we use the term hermetic in the sense of secret, sealed so that nothing can escape, etc. And this by reason of the fact that the followers of Hermes always observed the principle of secrecy in their teachings. They did not believe in casting pearls before swine, but rather held to the teaching, both of which Maximus are familiar to readers of the monotheist scriptures, Torah, Gospel, Quran, but both of which have been used by the Egyptians for centuries before the Jewish, Muslim, or Christian era. And this policy of careful dissemination of the truth has always characterized Hika, even onto this present day. The Hika teachings are to be found in all lands, among all religions, but never identified with any particular country, nor with any particular religious sect. There are 720 degrees in 2 sections of 360. 360 degrees physical and 360 degrees spiritual. Yet they say we hold in our possession 9 degrees only. I see the hidden secret. The true Tehuti teachings were found in Egypt of old and incarnated in the ancient Egyptian order today in the West, in the heart, head, and hands of God and flesh, Atum-Re, the first point of light. This is because of the warning of the ancient teachers against allowing the secret doctrine to become crystallized into a religious creed. The best kept secret is best kept sacred. The wisdom of this caution is apparent to all students with the statement, "Mum's the word." The ancient occultism of India and Persia degenerated and was largely lost, owing to the fact that the teachers became priests and so mixed theology and philosophy with the facts, and the result being the occultism of India and Persia had been gradually lost amidst the mass of religious superstitions, cults, faiths, beliefs, creeds, and spirit gods. And these gods are in conflict with each other. So it was with ancient Sumer and Mayan. It was not so with the Tehuti teachings of old, kept protected few. Now is available to you in the ancient Egyptian order. The Gnostics and early Christians even touched this. None was lost in time of Constantine, whose iron hand smothered Egyptian facts with the blanket of philosophy and theology, losing it in the Christian church, and later the Muslim mosques, that which was its very essence and spirit, and causing it to grope throughout several centuries before it found the way back to its ancient roots. The indications apparent to all careful observers in this 21st century being that the churches, mosques are now struggling to get back to its ancient mystic teachings of Egypt, and the monks and their night orders who were overthrown by a Muslim Sultan Mukmuk in the 14th century, who stole some information for the Sufi order of Turkey. But there were always a few loyal souls who kept alive the truth, tending it carefully and not allowing its secrets to become destroyed by the children of light and chaos. And thanks to these staunch hearts and fearless minds, we have the truth still with us. It is found in the teachings of the ancient Egyptian order. It has been passed along from master to student, from hierophant to initiate, from lip to ear. When it was written down at all, its meaning was veiled in terms of alchemy and astrology and secret symbolism, so that only those possessing the master key could read it aright. This was made necessary in order to avoid the persecutions of the theologians of the Middle Ages, who fought the secret doctrines with the light, fire and sword, stake, giblet, cross and crescent. Even to this day, there will be found but few reliable books on the teachings, although there are countless references to it and many books written on various phases to occultism. And yet, the Tehuti teaching is the only master key which will open all the doors of the occult teachings. In the early days, there was a compilation of certain basic Hika doctrines passed on from teacher to student, which was known as Pa Sarum Hakundum, the secret wisdom. The exact significance and meaning of the term having been the secret wisdom. This teaching, however, is known to many to whom it has descended from mouth to ear and on throughout the centuries. Its precepts have never been totally written down or printed. It was merely a collection of maxims, axioms, and precepts, which were non-understandable to outsiders and passed from word of mouth to ear, but which were readily understandable by students after the axioms, maxims, and precepts have been explained and exemplified by the Hika initiates to their neophytes. These teachings really constituted the basic principles of the art of Egyptian alchemy, which, contrary to the general belief, dealt in the mastery of mental forces rather than material elements. The transmutation of one kind of mental vibrations into others, instead of the changing of one kind of metal into another. The legends of the philosopher's stone, which would turn base metal into gold, was an allegory relating to Tehuti's teachings, readily understood by all students of true Hika. We invite our students of the ancient Egyptian order to examine into the Hika teachings as set forth in Pa Sarum Hakundum, the secret wisdom, and as explained by myself, incarnation of Tehuti, and my students of teachings who, while bearing the title of initiates, are still students at the feet of Tehuti, the supreme grand hierophant. We herein give you many of the maxims, axioms, and precepts of Pa Sarum Hakundum, accompanied by explanations and illustrations, which we deem likely to render the teachings more easily comprehended by the modern students, particularly as the original text is purposely veiled in obscure terms. The original maxims, axioms, and precepts of Pa Sarum Hakundum are printed herein, in quotation marks, the proper credit being given. My own work is printed in the regular way, in the body of the work. I trust that the many students to whom I now offer this little work will derive as much benefit from the study of its pages as have the many who have gone on before, treading the same path to mastery throughout the centuries that have passed since the times of Tehuti, the master of masters, the greatest of the great. In the words of Pa Sarum Hakundum, don't be deceived by the Greeks, altering teaching, calling it the Kybalion when it was not. Let's set the record straight. So that according to the teachings, the passage of this book to those ready for the instruction will attract the attention of such as are prepared to receive the teaching. And likewise, when the pupil is ready to receive the truth, then will this little book come to him or her, such is the law. The Heka doctrine of cause and effect of things and its aspect of the law of attraction of things will bring lips and ear together, pupil and book and company. The key is keep your third eye on things. See through them, and you will see the real physical world of existence and the ethereal world of existence. Your first test is to touch yourself, the first degree of reality. Are you there? If yes, let's start. Z, meaning backbone, stability. 1. Ogdwad, Chapter 2. The 9 Tehuti doctrines. The doctrines of truth are 9. He who knows these overstandingly possesses the magic key before whose touch all the doors of the temple fly open at Kiminu. The 9 Tehuti doctrines upon which the entire Tehuti teaching is based are as follows. 1. The doctrine of mental. 2. The doctrine of correspondence. 3. The doctrine of vibration. 4. The doctrine of polarity. 5. The doctrine of rhythm. 6. The doctrine of cause and effect. 7. The doctrine of gender. 8. The doctrine of growth. 9. The doctrine of breathing. These 9 doctrines will be discussed and explained as I proceed with these studies. A short explanation of each, however, is in place to be given at this point in time in your coming journey. 1. The doctrine of mental. Mine your mind for the jewels of your soul. This doctrine embodies the right knowledge that all is mental and each has a mind. It explains that pt.2, the all, which is the reality underlaying all the outward and inward manifestations and appearances, seen and unseen, which we know under the terms of existence, the material existence, the ethereal existence, the phenomena of life, matter, energy, ether, and in short, all that is apparent to our material senses. One sense subdivided into many is ka, spirit, ba, soul, cat, body, which in itself is knowable and definable, but which may be considered and thought of as a universal, infinite living mind, and pt.2, the all. The threefold you. You have touched your cat, felt it through your ka, and accepted the way it felt with your ba. Ketkaba is see, hear, taste, smell, and feel are all in cat. Knowing this is in ka and being able to appreciate it is ba. All these are but touch. All is I am. It also explains that all the phenomenal world or universe is simply a mental creation and pt.2, the all, subject to the laws of created things if physical, and that the universe as a whole and in its parts or units has its existence in the mind of pt.2, the all. All does all. All does all. In which mind we live and move and have our being, persons, places, and things. I, you, they. This doctrine, by establishing the physical and ethereal mental nature of all things and their physical part in the universe, easily explains all of the varied mental and psychic phenomena that occupy such a large portion of the public attention, and which without such explanation, you end up with blind faith, false hopes, and beliefs and spookisms, chasing a ghost god to an unknown and unproven place to receive gifts you are not worthy. No matter how good you pretend to be, just so you wouldn't get burnt in an eternal fire. Hell, so you made a deal with your God, all which is non-understandable and defies scientific realities. An overstanding of this great Egyptian doctrine of mental in relation to mind. Each individual has a mind, which is fed from the same mental reservoir, which enables each individual to readily grasp the laws of the mental and to apply the same to his and her well-being and advancement. That's being in touch with a real God. The ancient Egyptian order student is enabled to apply intelligently and out-intelligently the great mental and physical laws, instead of using them in a haphazard manner as religions have. With the Ankh master key in his possession, the student may unlock the many doors of the mental and psychic temple of right knowledge, right wisdom, and the right overstanding, and enter the same freely using the God mind you have or the mind of mental, which is God. This explains the true nature of energy, power, matter, existence, and why and how all these are subordinate to the mastery of mind, and that each mind is a slave to the mental, the force of ether, which controls the action of matter. One of the old Tehuti masters wrote long ages ago, he or she realizes that all is. And these words are as true for all time. Without this master key, mastery is impossible. And the student knocks in vain at the many doors of the temple and is met by the false teacher of ghosts, spooks, fictions, beliefs, myths, given false hopes, no facts, no truth, just lie after lie. The light is the devil's tool. Darkness is the home of God, peace, tranquility, and bliss. Find your way back to black. 2. The doctrine of correspondence. That which is above is the same as that which is below, and both are in pt.2, the all. This doctrine embodies the truth that there is always a correspondence between the laws and phenomena of the various planes of being and life between things. The old axiom ran in these words: as above, so below; as below, so above. This will mislead you into thinking there are two directions, when in fact there is no direction at all. Even your own planet Earth is going nowhere, around and back again. So time is going nowhere. And the grasping of this doctrine gives one the means of solving many a blinding paradox and the many hidden secrets of nature at work in all things. They claim there are planes of existence beyond our knowledge, like heaven or hell. But they would serve no point if they believe Yahweh, Theos, or Allah created all things for you. When we apply the doctrine of correspondence to them, we are able to understand much that would otherwise be unknowable to us. To correspond, this must take place between two or more things. This doctrine is of universal application and manifestation, seen, heard, tasted, smelled, and felt things. Even planes are things. The various planes of the material, mental, and spiritual universe. It is a universal law under 1, persons, 2, places, 3, things. The ancient Egyptians considered this doctrine as one of the most important mental and physical instruments by which mortals were able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view of the unknown, that which was lighter than the hydrogen atom. But now, the once unknown is known as quarks and zells. Things have changed a great deal. Its use even tore aside the veil of spookism, ghostism, Holy Ghost, sixth ether spirit forces become real beings. Their unseen or unfelt, unproven God, to the extent that a glimpse of the subatomic world, the very face of their creator, has been caught by the hand and now can be examined. So the term supreme being becomes real. A supreme being is still a being like human being. Supreme human being. Think about this point. That which was nothing is now many wonderful things. Beginning beyond the hydrogen atom is a new world of energies, just as a knowledge of the principles of geometry enables mortals to measure distant suns and their movements while seated in an observatory. So a knowledge of the doctrine of correspondence enables mortals to reason from the known to the unknown made known. when in fact geometry should only be the measurement of geo, the earth. From nothing to thing, from hydrogen to ether, and so on and on. The unreal has become real. Mental does in fact exist. Studying a thing reveals many things, all corresponding in pt.2, the all, as part of all. It did not stop at the hydrogen atom. It does not stop at your God, Yahweh, Theos, or Allah. They are by your own words in heaven, in which is being opened with the master key, all in all. 3. The doctrine of vibration. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. This is the key to manifestation. But beyond things is all without movement. This doctrine embodies the truth that everything is in motion. Everything vibrates. Nothing is at rest. Facts, which modern scientific discovery tends to verify, and yet this Egyptian doctrine was enunciated thousands of years ago by the masters of ancient Egypt. This doctrine explains that the differences between different manifestations of matter, energy, mind, and even spirit result largely from varying rates of vibration, different from moving from place to place, from the ethereal, which is pure spirit, pure soul, down to the grossest form of matter. All things are in vibration. The higher the vibration, the higher the position in the scale. The lower the vibration, the more spiritual as matter vibrates at a slower rate. The particles become farther and farther apart. The vibration of spirit is at such an infinite rate of intensity and rapidity that it is practically at rest, just as a rapidly moving wheel seems to be motionless because all things work in cycles, as the serpent with its tail and its own mouth. And at the other end of the scale, there are gross forms of matter whose vibrations are so low as to seem at rest. So in fact, they are the same. Between these poles, there are millions upon millions of varying degrees of vibration, from corpuscle and electron, atom and molecule, to worlds and universes. Everything is in a vibratory motion. Yet nothing is actually moving from its place. This is also true on the planes of energy and force, which are but varying degrees of vibration, and not so on to the spiritual planes. These states of existence are between the movement of that which vibrates at the space between the tick and tock of time, or the rest in a music scale. An overstanding of this doctrine with the appropriate formulas enables the ancient Egyptian order students to control their own vibrations as well as those of others, vibrating on the lower bass texture tone of the past and travel back to when, or rise on the higher pitch of the future and travel up to when, which was then and becomes then from now. The masters also apply this doctrine to the conquering of natural phenomena in various ways. He or she who understands the doctrine of vibration has grasped the Sachem, scepter of power, master of time and space. Yet in knowing this doctrine of vibrations, know also that all things vibrate, but what of the nothing that exists? They have their own principle, not rated by movement. 4. The doctrine of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites, like and unlike or the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes met. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. Which is it? You can't have it both ways. This doctrine embodies part truth, that everything is dual.
Hua, how y'all doing, family? Can I get a hua? Everybody in the house?
Hua.
Little shot.
Hua. Hua mana.
Hua mana.
Okay.
Hua mana.
Então, momentum config. Y'all absorbing the jewels? You getting it? Understanding it? Or, you know, it's one of the things you gotta listen to again and again. You know what I mean? Because every time you listen to it, just like every time you read it, you find something new. You hear it like the first time. Feel me?
This doctrine embodies part truth, that everything is dual. Nothing has dual. Existence has no dual, and don't say non-existence, because that would mean just that, non-existence. So there is no second part or dual. Everything has two poles. The all is the ground, that the poles are planted. Everything has its pair of opposites. To create opposites is the trick of evil versus good, giving the devil or evil an equal place and part in things. No real opposition exists against all. Where would it come from? It would already be a part, all of which were old Egyptian axioms. It explains the old paradoxes that have perplexed so many, which have been stated as follows. Thesis and antithesis are identical in nature, but different in degree. Opposites are the same, differing only in degree. The pairs of opposites may be reconciled. Extremes met, everything is and isn't at the same time. All truths are but half-truths. Every truth is half false. There are the teachings of the children of the light. It's not true. There are two sides to everything. Wrong. Not in quantum physics. All is all. It explains that in everything there are two poles, yet these poles stand on one base, or that opposite aspects, and that opposites are really only the two extremes of the same thing with many varying degrees between them. Let me illustrate the true doctrine of Egypt. Hot and cold, although they are called opposites by the children of light, they are really the same thing. The differences consisting merely of degrees of the same thing. Look at your thermometer and see if you can discover where heat terminates and cold begins. There is no such thing as absolute heat or absolute coldness. The two terms hot and cold simply indicate varying degrees of the same thing. And that same thing, which manifests as hot and cold, is merely a form, a mood, a variety, and a rate of vibration. So hot and cold are simply the two poles of that which we call temperature, and the phenomena attendant thereupon are manifestations of the doctrine of polarity. The same doctrine that manifests in the case of light and darkness, which are not the same things, the difference consisting of varying degrees between the two poles of the phenomena. Where darkness leaves off and light begins is not true, for darkness is eternal, and all light is in darkness, and where there is light, there is a shadow. Where there is pure darkness, there is no light. Darkness is all, never the other way. So they are not and never can be opposite of the same thing. Light has limitations. You can cut the light off, but never blackness or darkness. It always exists. What is the difference between large and small, between hard and soft? Both, again, are things. What is the difference between black and white in terms of color, which both are classified, but which neither are colors? As light and darkness are not colors, colors primarily are red, blue, and yellow. Combinations or mixtures of these three colors produce the rainbow and on crystal, and is used for a prism and is transparent, meaning you can see through it. It's whatever material it is made from that registers on the existence scale. Combining all the primary colors and all of the subcolors made from them together would give you dark brown, inclining to black, yet blackness's simple existence. Between sharp and dull, between noise and quiet, between high and low, between positive and negative. Black or dark is all, and all things exist in all, including light or white. White has an end. The doctrine of polarity explains these paradoxes, and no other doctrine can subside it. Yet darkness is outside of this principle or doctrine. It can't be compared. It is all. The same principle operates on the mental plane as the physical of cause, not physical of things. It's light, object, action, motion, or movement. Mental is the blackness mind, the light that shines in each body. Let us take a radical and extreme example, that of love and hate. Two mental states, apparently totally different, planted in emotion. And yet there are degrees of hate and degrees of love, and a middle point in which we use the terms like or dislike, which shade into each other so gradually that sometimes we are at a loss to know whether we like or dislike or neither. And all are simply degrees of the same thing, as you will see if you will but think a moment. And more than this, a considered of more importance by the Egyptian. It is possible to change the vibrations of hate to the vibrations of love in one's own mind. That is one's own mind, not the whole of mental and in the minds of others. Many of you who read these lines have had personal experiences of the involuntary, rapid transition from love to hate, and the reverse. In your own case and that of others, that's emotional. This is caused by events of the physical, not the mental. And you will therefore realize the possibility of this being accomplished by the use of the will by means of Egyptian formulas. Good and evil are but the poles of the same thing placed in action. And the Egyptian understands the art of transmuting evil into good by means of an application of the doctrine of polarity. In short, the art of polarization becomes a phase of emotional alchemy, never mental, known and practiced by the ancient and modern Egyptian masters. An understanding of the doctrine will enable one to change his and or her own polarity as well as that of others, if he will devote the time and study necessary to master the art. 5. The doctrine of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. To swing to and fro, you need a point of origin and a fixed spot as to where the cord hangs from, and the first movement to start the swing. Yet all of this is in the all. This is a physical principle, a motive principle. This doctrine embodies the truth that in everything there is manifested a measured motion to and fro, a flow and inflow, a swing backward and forward, a pendulum-like movement, a tide-like ebb and flow, a high tide and a low tide between the two poles which exist in accordance with the doctrine of polarity described a second ago. Not a moment, for that comes before the second, and would not apply in this case where you have points of reference to and fro. To is actually from, and from is from, or return from and come from. There is always an action and a reaction in this physical realm, an advance and a retreat, a rising and a sinking. This is the affairs of the universe, suns, worlds, mortals, animals, energy, and matter, but never mental or ethereal, which, as I said, just is. This law is manifest in the creation and destruction of worlds, birth and death, in the rise and fall of nations, in the life of all things, and finally in the physical states of mortals, like breathing in and out. And it is with this latter that the Egyptians find the overstanding of the doctrine most important. The Egyptians have grasped this doctrine, finding its universal application, and have also discovered certain means to overcome its effects and themselves by the use of the appropriate formulas and methods. They apply the mental law of neutralization. They cannot annul the doctrine or cause it to cease its operation, but they have learned how to escape its effects upon themselves to a certain degree, depending upon the mastery of the doctrine. They have learned how to use it instead of being used by it. In this and similar methods consists the art of the Egyptians. The master of Hika polarizes himself or herself at the point at which he or she wants to rest, and then neutralizes the rhythmic swing of the pendulum, which would tend to carry him and or her to the other pole. All individuals who have attained any degree, more or less unconsciously, but the master does this consciously and by the use of his and or her will, and attains a degree of poise and mental firmness almost impossible on the part of the masses who are swung backward and forward like a pendulum. This doctrine and that of polarity have been closely studied by the Egyptians, and the methods of counteracting, neutralizing, and using them from an important part of the ancient Egyptians' orders, mental alchemy. 6. The doctrine of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law, not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. And law is, all things happen in the all. All is affected by things in the all. This principle embodies the fact that there is a cause for every effect, an effect for every cause. It explains that everything happens according to law, that nothing ever merely happens. that there is no such thing as chance or luck, that while there are various planes of cause and effect, the higher dominating the lower planes, still nothing ever entirely escapes the law. The Egyptians understand the art and methods of rising above the ordinary plane of cause and effect to a certain degree, and by mentally rising to a higher plane, they become causers with effects happening within itself. The masses of people are carried along, obedient to environment, the wills and desires of others, stronger than themselves. Heredity, suggestion, and other outward causes moving them about like fish on the hook of life. But the masters, rising to the place above, dominate their moods, characters, qualities, and powers, as well as the environment surrounding them, and become fishers of men instead of fish. They help to play the game of life instead of being played and moved about by other wills and environment. They use the principle instead of being its tools. The masters obey the causatation of the higher planes, but they help to rule on their own plane. In this statement, there is a condensed wealth of Egyptian knowledge. 7. The doctrine of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. Again, there is no real gender except what appears in the physical realm and in the spiritual realm. You are not male or female, you are God. This doctrine embodies the truth that there is gender manifested in everything physical and nothing spiritual. The masculine and feminine principles ever at work. The need to separate to establish authority. This is true only on the physical plane, but not the mental nor even the spiritual planes. No soul or spirit has need of gender, for they do not reproduce or copulate. On the physical plane, the doctrine manifests as sex. On the higher planes, it takes higher forms, but the doctrine is ever the same. No creation, physical, is possible without the doctrine, or without this doctrine. An understanding of its laws will throw light on many a subject that has perplexed the minds of many. Yes, sex is of the light, as is what it breeds: lust, rape, caused by gender. The doctrine of gender works ever in the direction of generation, regeneration, and creation. Everything and every person contains the two elements of doctrines, or this great doctrine within it, him or her. Every male thing has the female element also. Every female contains also the male doctrine. If you would understand the doctrine of mental and creation, birth, growth, generation, and regeneration, you must understand and study this Egyptian doctrine. It contains the solution of many mysteries of life. We caution you that this doctrine has no reference to many base, pernicious, and degrading lustful theories, teachings, and practices which are taught under fancy titles and which are a prostitution of the great natural doctrine of gender. Such base revivals of the ancient infamous forms of phallicism tend to ruin flesh, body, and person. And the Egyptian has ever sounded the warning note against these degraded teachings which tend towards lust, licentiousness, and perversion of nature's doctrines. God, Theos, had a child, Jesus, by a woman, Mary. Allah is a he, but does not need a she. If you seek such teachings, you must go elsewhere for them. The ancient Egyptian order contains nothing for you along these lines. To the pure, all things are pure. To the base, all things are base. We must get in pt.2, the obelisk, as the symbol of gender control, how both male and female built them, and the pass down has the pillar in front of many temples, lodges, the minarets and mosques, all came from the doctrine of gender. 8. The doctrine of growth and creation. Growth is a manifestation of size, altering from one point in time and space to another. Creation is a manifestation of beginning and on to a specific designated point as found in the seed of the thought that initiates the idea of creation. All forms of growth, creation are no more than a change in that which is apparent, in which either direction the onlooker perceives it. This doctrine must make you realize that all things that exist on the physical plane were created and or created themselves out of pre-existing matter or energy. And the root reality of creation is that the very word in itself merely means to grow. As habits grow, thoughts grow, knowledge grows, illness grows, bacteria grows, the mind grows. But through information channeled from an etheric cord from the mental, the reservoir of intellect, and the source from which the mind is fed intellect. These are realities, substantial realities, material realities. The universe is a phenomenon of life that grew into existence. Nothing in existence can decreate or degrow, or even decline from existing. They are here because they are supposed to be here, by virtue of the fact that they exist and are here. So also the spark that you call the power of God responsible for creation grew in the darkness. Thus your God or God concept is also a part of creation and growth, and without that principle or doctrine, your God could not exist. Thus, your God is not merely the creator or a creator, but part of that, which is and was created and grew. These are the master keys that unravel the mystery of existence as all manifests as the all, thus creation and birth. 9. The doctrine of breathing. Everything appears to be breathing inward and outward. This appears to be the principle by which one acknowledges life, but in actuality, true life existed before the breath, or the necessity to breathe to exist. This doctrine teaches the breath of life. You don't merely breathe in and out. All the pores of your body breathe. Thoughts breathe. As mind changes from thought to idea to created thing, when the artist conceives a thought to be put on the easel, the finished product is the exhale, the manifestation of an inner thought or breath now into existence. Pulsation is breathing, but breathing is not the sole source of life. As monotheistic religions would have you believe that something breathed the breath of life into you and you became a living soul, missing that the being, be it God by whatever name they chose, had to exhale and to accumulate the breath to exhale, must have inhaled previously, which puts supreme being under the law of inhaling to exhale. This principle of Egyptian doctrine revealed the simple fact of origin being indefinable in terms of all, but definable in terms of the all, by the point where all has to be defined as the something. Thus, existence had to be defined as the God to give a sense of the only God responsible for creation. when in fact the only God who breathed out the breath of life into your nostrils in itself had to have been created, had an origin, and grew as one accepts this God and begins to surrender their inquisitiveness in exchange for faith and belief. They have ceased to breathe from all and merely breathe as a part of the all. Sa is to protect, guardianship. Chapter 3, Mental Transmutation. Transformation, transmutation, and transfiguration are realities, be they mind, flesh, and metals. As we have stated, the Egyptians were the original alchemists, astrologers, and psychologists, Tehuti having been the founder of these schools of thought. It was called Hika, from solar biology, astrology, and modern astronomy has come. From alchemy has grown modern chemistry. From the mystic Wab priest has grown the modern psychology of the schools. But it must not be supposed that the ancients were ignorant of that which the modern schools suppose to be their exclusive and special property. The records engraved on the stones of ancient Egypt show conclusively that the ancients had a full comprehensive knowledge of solar biology, which gave birth to the zodiac, and astrology, speculative, and astronomy, operative. The very building of Pa-Merat, the pyramids, showing the connection between their design and the study of the stars, mainly Septet, Sirius, and Sahu, Orion. The Egyptians were master astronomers. They were not ignorant of chemistry. They, in fact, were the mothers and fathers of all learning. The fragments of the ancient writings show that they were the masters of chemical properties of things. In fact, the ancient facts regarding physics are being slowly verified by the latest discoveries of modern science, notably those relating to the constitution of matter, things the ancient Egyptians knew all along. So you have discoveries means discover or discover, to uncover things already known. Now that the atom has been exposed to not be the smallest of all things in existence, they were not ignorant of the so-called modern discoveries in the working mind. On the contrary, the Egyptians were especially skilled in the science of the working of the mind, particularly in the branches that the modern schools ignore, but which nevertheless are being uncovered under the name of science, paranormal, which is perplexing the psychologists of today, and the religious leaders, and making them reluctantly admit that there is something in it after all. The Egyptians had the secrets. The Europeans did not know anything, had no sciences or knowledge. They were blinded by their own white light. The truth is that beneath the material chemistry, astronomy, and the working of the mind, that is, the physical and mental workings of the brain action, the ancients possessed a knowledge of transcendental astronomy, operative called astrology, speculative of transcendental chemistry, called alchemy, a transcendental psychology called mysticism. They possess the inner knowledge as well as the outer knowledge, the latter alone being possessed by modern scientists. Among the many secret branches of knowledge possessed by the Egyptians was that known as mental transmutation, which forms the subject matter of this degree. Transmutation is a term usually employed to designate the ancient art of the transmutation of metals, particularly of the base metals into gold. The word transmutes means to change from one nature, form, or substance into another to transform. And accordingly, mental transmutation means the art of changing and transforming mental states, forms, and conditions into others. So you may see that mental transmutation is the art of mental chemistry. If you like the term, a form of practical mysticism. But this means far more than appears on the surface. Transmutation, alchemy, or chemistry are on the mental plane, the fourth plane, the first being the physical, the second being the plane of force, the third, the spiritual plane, and the fourth, the mental plane, is important enough in its effects to be sure. And if the art stopped there, it would still be one of the most important branches of study known to mortals. But this is only the beginning. Let us see why. The first of the 9 Tehuti doctrine is the doctrine of mentalism, the axiom of which is the all is mind. This is not true, for the mind is in the all, and the all is in all. And the universe is mental, and the universe is in the all, which means that the underlying reality of the universe is mind. Mental and etheric cords connect each mortal to a mind, and the universe itself is physical and mental, that is, existing in the mind of pt.2, the all, in two forms, physical and mental. We shall consider this doctrine in succeeding degrees, but let us see the effect of the doctrine if it is assumed to be true. If the universe is mind in its nature, is God or the grand architect of the universe Yahweh, Allah, or Theos, then mental transmutation must be the art of changing the conditions of the universe along the lines of matter, force, and mind, solid, liquid, gas, person, places, or things, the triad doctrines. So you see, therefore, the mental transmutation is really the magic of which the ancient writers had so much to say in their mystical works, and about which they gave so few practical instructions. If all be mental, then the art which enables one to transmute mental conditions must render the master the controller of material conditions, as well as those ordinary called mental. As a matter of fact, none but advanced mental alchemists have been able to attain the degree of power necessary to control the grosser physical conditions, such as the control of the elements of nature that will make them a god or supreme being, the production of suscitation, the tempests, the production of suscitation of earthquakes, rain, hail, and other great physical phenomena. These beings were gods. But that such mortals have existed and do exist today is a matter of earnest facts to all advanced occultists of all schools, which all came from Egypt, that Pa-Nabat, the masters, exist and have these powers. The best teachers assure their students, having had experiences which justify them in such realities and statements. These Netarat or Nitirat, supreme beings, do not make public exhibitions of their powers, but seek seclusion from crowds of mortals as mortal, living and acting as the normal, in order to better work their way along the path of attainment and to bring others with them. We mention their existence at this point merely to call your attention to the fact that their power is entirely mental and operates along the lines of the higher mental transmutation under the Egyptian doctrine of mentalism. The universe is mental, and mental is in the all.
Poor. All right, we're gonna stop right there. That was dope. That was fire. Anybody got any questions, comments, concerns? Anything they want to share with the family?
I have something to ask. So where do when people say they catch the Holy Ghost and speaking in tongues, where do that fall? Is that phony, fake, or is there some type of different entity or spirit that is taking over their body?
In a lot of cases, it's fake. But in special cases, people can be possessed. It goes back to ancient rituals and dances, all the way to your ephods and your yelabas and stuff like that. It comes from stuff like 6 ether forces jumping in on you, disembodied spirits jumping into you. Now, whether you want to call it evil, as in religious type of evil, that's up to the person's ideology. But yes, it is possible for you to be either possessed by beings jumping into you or telepathically, manipulating you. If your psychic self-defense ain't strong enough. And the funny part is, the other beings, doesn't even have to be a strong telepathic being, but exudes very strong vibration. It could be negative, just like when you come across somebody that just is negative, and it can rub off on you as well, showing that you are still using some form of transmitting and receiving, thoughts, ideas, and emotions, telepathy. Meaning that there's not a thing where you have to be taught telepathy. It's a natural part of you. So in knowing that it's a natural part of you, you should also understand or get to and work your way to understanding that you will have to shed off of things in order to get to the core, or to bring that which is in out, your ability, your potential that you're using all the time. But again, yes, in some cases, people can get possessed, but a lot of time people just want to join the bandwagon in church. See Sister Mayfield going ahead catching the Holy Ghost and everybody else, and you don't want to look like the evil one, so you go up there and you do the stanky leg. So, that happens also. Anybody else got time for question? Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Did anybody else have anything they want to add on or say before we close this shadow out? And thank you, Sister Nuntiki Kaur, for another, night of sacred wisdom of Tehuti, written by the master teacher, Aminubi Akhtar, also known as Dr. Malachi Zior, Zodak Yor El, etc. So, Hua. Oh, how you doing? Hua, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing my best. Good to hear from you.
Likewise. I had a question following what the sister just mentioned. And you went into it about raising your psychic self-defense. So my question is, what do you do if you're in a situation where it feels like it's intensified, and you're still doing your works? Like, is there something else that could be done to add to kind of, I guess, shed that quick enough to where you can still function without being in the position where you're hindered?
Yes, it goes back to what we just read. All is mind, right? Everything is mental. So just the first key is to be aware of that reality, that you can succumb or potentially act or react off of pulses or impulses. To be aware and be mindful of it. It's going to be exercised. And the more exercise, the more dominant and more strength you'll get. Another thing to approach a situation is with a different perspective, a different point of view, the same situation, but looking at it instead of something that is beating me down, something that is strengthening me, another task, another, you have to learn how to switch your specs, your glasses, your mental, your mindset. And it all, means that there's a reason why we should take time and sit alone with ourselves for 15 minutes a day, just for starts, for example, or go into certain meditation. And even words that you can use in chanting, certain names and certain meanings within it, you could continually study it and make it mean something to you first before you can actually start chanting and use it. It have to mean something, have some type of, connection to you. So, and these are practices that we do in order to stay strong, because the stronger you get, the stronger the force. That we're talking about the doctrine of gender and polarity. You know what I mean? The higher you go, the high, what I mean? The way the pendulum swings. That's
Right.
The life swings. So we constantly practice. We're always in the spiritual gym. We're always in the lab doing our meditation, and our combat is within ourselves in those hours when we do that, meaning that you will understand that there's a different being within you telling you why you should delay in doing these type of works, so you can exercise, your strength. So you understand what I'm trying to say, brother? So this is exercising that, and also, meditation, and also diet plays a major part too. You know what I mean? If you don't be aware of what y'all eat and stuff like that, or what you consume, it don't have to be food, right? Consume, and the effect that it can have. When the effect hits you, you might assume it's something or somebody in your environment. It was just a hormone dump or a shot within you, or a body affecting you, and you start acting up or react to that feeling.
Right.
All right. So here we go. This is why it's important for us to stay the course and become rataba, unshakable, understanding that we need, to do our breathing, everything. Our main responsibility, our main religion is our health at first. Learn how to swim before coming to lifeguard. Be the best of example each day, like a new day. If you ain't accomplished nothing the next day, don't have to be something big, something towards your health and your evolution per day. Then if you get mastery about it, per hour, every moment, and your truth. Or
Tehuti.
not the khuzi. All right, y'all. Anybody else have any comments, questions, concern before we shut out? And Tehuti, everybody, for showing up this shadow hour. We'll see you again, Brother Nab. You take us out with all affirmation. Hua.
Abdul Kur Bazun Tapletet, Wadana Bet Mahu Hadus Aisha Unikalu. Anuki Fina Aisha Shukalu Wakula Shukaluni. Naata Kuna Fikalu. Anuki Feragun Shukalu, Wakalu Kalu Feragun Shuni. Anuki Wahid Kakalu, Wakalu Kalu Wahid Mani. Nuk Aikilu, Anjihu. Kama Feragun Shukalu Wahub Kama Feidu. Nuk Aikilu Aquenu, Kodik Nuka Fizu Fikalu. Kama Tawuka Makafazi Kalunlia Amidu Fikalu. Anuki Kabaha Wahud. Kalu Kalu Nanuki, Kalu Yaku, Nuk Aikilu, Kalu Bamu, Nuk Atmilu. Begin all prayers, thinkings, and deeds with who? Divine love and all. I am in the love of all, and all love is me. We are all in all. I am a part of all, and all is a part of me. I can succeed as a part of all and fail as an individual. I can be all I wish in all as long as my wish is to stay in all. I am never, all is I am. All I can, all does I do.
All right. The fiddle shot, Wadu, Umana.
What? Bill Shack.